My name is Primitivo, Primitivo.
Okay, and your last name?
And my last name is Gonzalez, spelled with a Z at the end. Yes, Gonzalez.
Perfect. And if you don't mind, your age right now?
No, I don't mind. I'm happy to be the age I am right now, and that is right now I will be 75 in November the 18th of this year.
Fantastic. Well, happy early birthday.
Well, thank you.
Perfect. So, I guess just whenever you're ready, just go ahead and tell me where you were born and raised, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, okay. I was born and raised in the little town of Sonora, Texas. Very familiar to San Angelo, as San Angelo is to Sonora people. Grew up the youngest son of 7 people. Here I am going to be 75 years old, and I'm the baby of the boys. And all of us, except for my oldest brother, who is deceased, are still alive. And I'm very proud to say that all of them have served in the military but one. So my dad is a Mexican immigrant, came from Mexico, and so is my mother. And my dad is very patriotic, very is. He's proud to have on the shelf there in the living room a picture of all of his sons that are serving or that served our country. And I was born in 1943 on November the 18th, and grew up, had a great childhood, great teenage life. I've just had a great life, really. I have been blessed. In high school, went to high school, and that was very good for me because I was blessed that I was able to participate well in most of the sports that Sonora had to offer, and participated in all of them. And consequently, it eventually ended me up with a scholarship to get my education. And that was the only way. There's no way my dad was going to be able to send me to school. And as a matter of fact, I didn't think that I would either. I'd already made plans. Here's an interesting story. I'd already made plans to join the Marine Corps, as we are in this place of honor in the buddy system. And when we were seniors in high school, a Marine recruiter came by trying to recruit young men to the Marines before they graduated. And on a certain day, we were to go as a group. And I was one of them. Except that prior to getting out of school, my high school coach, the great Jerry Hopkins, which a lot of people might know him, he's become a legend in Sonora, told me that I ought to take advantage of some of this invitations that some of these colleges have called me to go see, which I had no intentions of. First of all, how was I going to get there? And so he encouraged me to do that. He says, you never know. He says, you might. And he gave me some advice, about what to look for. See, I played quarterback in football, but in Sonora at the time that I started playing, we ran a brand new thing to Sonora, the wing T formation. We used to be the single wing prior to that. So as a result, we had a lot of sprint out play. So I was a sprint out quarterback. I was not a drop back quarterback per se. So he encouraged me to give it an extra effort if I get an opportunity to focus on defense. Defensive back. You're a heck of a defensive back. You'll be able to, because almost everywhere you go, they were beginning to adopt the drop back quarterback, which I was not that type of quarterback. So I took his advice, and anyway, I make the long story short, I landed a football scholarship, started out, and after hopping from place to place, I ended up in Cisco Junior College, of all places. And but they gave me a full ride to start with, but the best thing about it is at the time that I went, it was an excellent program. It was really, we lost to Cameron Junior College at the time in Cameron, Oklahoma, to make it to the Junior Rose Bowl in Pasadena, you know. And but anyway, from there, I wound up in Angelo State. At the time was SAC, San Angelo College. But they knew they were going to become 4-year program in time. So after visiting Saul Russ, I figured I was from Cisco, went up there, visited Saul Russ and stuff. On the way back, they dropped me off there in Sonora and to go home. And so I said, well, I'm going to drop by the athletic offices. And it happened that Max Baumgartner was available. And of course, he knew who I was by name. I'd never met him before. So when I went on there to his office and found out that I might be interested in playing football, he welcomed me with open arms and guaranteed that he would have a spot for me if I wanted to come to Angelo State. And so, yeah, it's right here at home, you know, 60 miles from Sonora. So I stayed in Angelo, and I played in the year of 1965 and 66, and on a scholarship. When my scholarship was up, it goes to show what kind of a student I was. I was not a book-type student, you know, of academics. Now, you get me to talk about any kind of athletic component, I can do that pretty good. But anyway, as it turned out, when it came time for the 4-year scholarship to be up, I don't have enough hours to graduate. And all my buddies, you know, they graduated. And as a matter of fact, one of them was running around here. I'll talk to you about him later. But so anyway, I had gotten married. Right as soon as I got out, I got married, and I went to school. Was going to school at night, and to support the fact that my wife had told me where you're going to expect a baby. So anyway, I was going to school part-time, taking 9 hours at night, and staying pretty busy, working all day for the highway department there in Armstrong, that office, the engineers in Armstrong Street. And it didn't take long for Uncle Sam to send me a greeting that I was being drafted. So I go to Sonora and talk to, at the time, Mrs. Grovey, who was the draft lady, and had a daughter that went to school with me there. So in a little town, you know who everybody is. And I begged her, Mrs. Grovey, let me stay and finish my degrees. I just need 15 hours to get my degree. Let me get my degree, and I'll enlist right now, or whatever. But let me go and finish. And says, Primo, you've been deferred 3 times already, and there's nothing I can do. So anyway, so here's where all of my emotional self began to have a transformation. I was very bitter of the draft, not because of the institution of the draft, because I am an advocate for it, but at the timing that it hit me, And so I go back to the house there at home, and I'm talking to my dad, and of course I'm talking to my dad in Spanish, and I tell him, I don't understand, Dad. Why don't they take all those bums running around, right them, and why can't they just let me go and finish, and blah, blah. So I began to really cry about things, if you want to say, So my dad gives me this gesture. He says, in Spanish, he says, wait just a minute, son. And he said, in a few choice words, says just, who in the world do you think you are? And I said, well, Dad, it's not fair. It's not fair. And that's the first time I heard the expression, life's not fair. And I heard it from my dad. He says, do you think you're the only young man in this country that's been called to duty to serve their country? I mean, he said, look at those shelves over there. And then looked over there, and there's a picture of all of my brothers. A Marine, an Air Force guy, and an Army guy. And except for one of my other brothers who did not serve, but then here I am, and my picture was missing. It's just, I'm very proud of all of you guys. And I'm very proud of you, what you've accomplished here. It's such, I tell you what, you don't worry about your wife, you don't worry about Nina, what's her name? It says, we'll take care of the baby when it comes and everything. You go do and take advantage of your schooling. They didn't call it an education. It says, take advantage of your schooling. And I knew what it meant. He meant education, but I thought. But as we conversed earlier, I came to find out that I was not educated, according to his theory. And so make long story short, yes, that's what I did. And so I'll go ahead and took advantage the very first day that I got picked up, not by choice. Took advantage of my schooling. When I get on the bus, like we're doing these buses here, and had to hand in my ID and find out who I was, and says, so you are, once again, the name was kind of Primo whatever, Gonzalez, and I said, yes, sir. And gave me a folder. And it says, here, you're in charge. And there was a bus coming from the west, all the way from El Paso. And all those little towns that were picking up people going to go to the induction center in San Antonio. And ironically enough, the majority of them were Latinos, Mexican, if you would, Mexican. And I said, okay. And it says, don't lose that. When you get there, hand it to the big man. Well, who would that be? You'll find out. Okay. So sure enough, when I get to San Antonio, I tell them who I am, and these are the people that were on the bus. So I had to sign things, whatever. So all of a sudden, because I have had 16 years of schooling, I'm smarter than everybody else. That was the thinking. So from there on, I found out that because of that, doors were opening, Not because it was a fact that I was smarter. I was not any smarter. I just had more schooling, And I was even surprised me more when we get to Fort Polk, Louisiana, and all of us in our civilian clothes in a little handbag that we had. And they told us, don't bring much because we've got everything you need, So just bring one change of clothes so that until you get your clothing, that's what you're going to wear. So I had a little old handbag, and the drill sergeant sets us there in front, and it's all all of us in civilian clothes, and make us sit down and squat Indian style and in formation, Bruce. And I'll never forget this man. His name was Sergeant Clark was his name. He was about 5'9" at that big as he was, maybe 5'8", little short, stocky guy with his hat. And then he just said, "Okay, welcome to Fort Polk, Louisiana." And then he tell us, of course, when he gave us a welcome, he followed it by a few descriptive adjectives, "Welcome to Fort Polk, Louisiana, you people. And I just want you to understand one thing and make sure listen to me." And then he barked at somebody. And he says, "And I mean you too. You blah, 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 blah." Okay, so we're listening. He says, "You're here in Fort Polk to train to go to Vietnam. Infantry. I'm going to tell you like it is. You're going to war, fellas. Oh, maybe one or two of you might wind up in Germany, whatever. And but you're being trained for Vietnam. Now, you're going to make a decision beginning right now whether you're going to purchase a round-trip ticket or a one-way ticket. How you take your training and what you do with it and how you learn to apply it and learn from here on out will determine what kind of fare you're going to get." So right there and then, it didn't dawn on me to realize I want a round-trip ticket. I want to make sure I have a way back. And so from that day on, I did. He was all ears and eyes, and of course physically, he was gravy trained for me. I could do or I thought I could do anything. At that age, I was 24 years old by standards, okay? But I just gotten through with football and everything else, and I was very active, and so the physical part of the training was gravy training, was fun for me. I enjoyed every minute of that, to a point that I became excellent in everything I did as far as the training. So it followed that pattern. So at the basic, I was thinking, people know it as boot camp, the basic training. Everybody gets a short pass, 28 days, 30 days, and then they assign you to somewhere. So Sergeant Clark advised me that I ought to go to LPC. In those 2 weeks that you get to go home, take them to go to LPC and wait till you get through there before you go. Wait before you get to AIT. AIT is Advanced Infantry Training in Northport. So I said, "Well, what is LPC?" LPC, Leadership Preparation Course, okay? Where you be trained the beginning of how to be a leader. So when you go to AIT, you'll be in a leadership position. And I said, in other words, you're going to be wearing one of those little things that I gave you, So when I got there, he designated me his platoon sergeant with a little black band and has a sergeant's stripes. And he designated 3 other guys that were my squad leaders, and those were the leaders of the platoon. And you'll never guess what motivated him to make me his platoon sergeant. The fact that I played football. The fact that I was a captain of the Ram football team at Angelo State University, and I played quarterback and cornerback, and I was reluctant to answer that like I am reluctant really talking to you, because when he asked, how many of you been in some kind of leadership position before? And of course, all walks of life were there. And, bankers and everybody, the draft didn't discriminate. And here I am, all I have to say was, well, I've been the captain of Angelo State Rams at Angelo State. So that's what motivated him to be his platoon sergeant. So, but I think he knew that I would be able to handle the physical part of that. And he assumed, because of my schooling, that I would be able to handle the rest of it, okay? But like I say, the physical part was easy. The other things that I had to learn were a little more challenging, but I was already trained how to study a little bit, so it made it easier. So I don't go home. I call my wife and ask her that I need, instead of going home, and here she was waiting to see me, and I wanted to see her. She was expecting our baby, and so she just very plainly told me, you do what you have to do. I'm fine. We're doing okay. She'd spend time with my folks, and she'd go spend time with her folks, and she was being taken care of. So I did. So after LPC, I go to AIT, and I have the same type of position. I'm a acting platoon sergeant for the training part, which kept me out of KP, by the way. And we went through some more training. So after that, when I got ready to graduate, the company commander calls me in his office and suggests that I ought to go to either OCS or NCO school. Now I knew what OCS was. I didn't quite understand maybe NCO school. Well, it's a non-commissioned officers, which is the same like going to OCS, except you're not a commissioned officer. You graduate as a buck sergeant. When I say buck sergeant, it's a 3-stripe. But if you land the top spot in the cycle, you go in front of a board and see if they can award you your staff sergeant. So I says, well, but I need to go home. Well, I know it. We'll let you go home or let you talk to your wife, whatever. And so that's what it is. I signed to go to school, and I'm getting ahead of myself. This came up again, and I can't go home, okay? But it was only a week's time. So here I'm going to Fort Benning, Georgia. So we get to Fort Benning for NCO school. After graduating from NCO school, which I am very proud to say, I graduated in the top 5% of my class, went in front of a panel of officers, and earned my staff sergeant E6 rank. And then they come up with some more stuff. They tell me that they would like for me to stay and help train the next class that's coming, and that I can get one of my buddies, buck sergeant friends, to be my assistant. And I said, well, how long do you need? He said, well, it'd be nice if you could tell us now, but we'll wait 24 hours. We'll wait 24 hours for you to make your decision and let you talk to your wife or whatever. So I did, and once again, my wife, bless her heart, says, you do what you have to do. And so here I am I'm a staff sergeant E6, okay, which takes a few years to get there. And all of a sudden I'm what people call instant pudding, and because I went to school and like the lieutenants when they get out of OCS and things, but okay. So I go and tell him, I went and talked to my assistant, Hubert Hancock, who is another story all in itself that I can tell you later. But anyway, so Hubert Hancock says, pardon the expression, says, heck, yeah. So I'm not in a hurry to go to Nam. I'll stay with you. We'll do that. We get another double dose of training. Not to mention that the training we did was the best. We're training with the Rangers detachment that's there in Fort Benning. So those were the people that taught us the jungle training and stuff. So we take over the platoon. Okay. So now that I know that's what I'm going to do, I go home and I get my wife. Okay, and my child was born. They were already was going to be born after I came back, but I had to go see her, so I left, and I go see my wife at about 25 days, and I get there at about midnight into Mathesville, and I had a big welcome at home, big fiesta and everything, and I go to bed late at night, to say the least. Well, anyway, about, 2 o'clock in the morning, 1:30, something like that, I'm rushing my wife to the hospital. And my boys born that day that I got there, that night. And so I had plenty of time. I still had a couple of weeks, so plenty of time for the baby to be strong enough to baptize him. So after 5 days, we baptized the child. And another military guy, my sister-in-law's husband, was stationed at Goodfellow Air Force Base. And they eventually got married. So they were my sponsors and, padrinos. And so I had plenty of time. He's baptized now. And I could take my wife, and here we go. And put our baby in the back seat of our car in a playpen, a 1964 Fairlane 500. That the only car that my dad bought when I was a senior at ASU. Never had a car. And here we go. Drive all the way to Columbus, Georgia, and to Fort Benning. And the one in the room in the base at the time. So we got us a little apartment in Columbus. And we were very fortunate. A little lady that ran some apartments there kind of became our nanny, a real nice lady. So we go to training the troops that are coming in. And Hubert was a fantastic assistant. I'd get to the base at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I already had my coffee sitting there with the agenda, like we do an agenda here of what we're going to do for the day. The barracks were spotless, clean, buffed, and all I had to do was give the order, and we'll all fall out outside the parade grounds and strip down to our T-shirt, fatigues, and go for a morning run, And of course, Hubert was the same way. Like I say, it's another story. He played ball the same time I did. He played for the Lumberjacks, Stephen F. Austin College in Nacogdoches. And we met on the field. He was a split receiver, and I was a cornerback. And typical of that, those two people always have trash talking, And so we played in San Angelo one year, and the next year we played over there, and so we got very acquainted. Got to be real good rival friends, and anyway, when I get to Fort Benning, to the actual training before I got my stripes, there's Hubert Hancock, training also for NCOC. So we trained together. So when I get my rank, I ask him if he wouldn't mind. I don't mind. So, he and I, had our stuff together, and we produced the best platoon almost every week, and plus we got double dose of training, and we stayed up late with him and tell them what to expect on tomorrow's training. This is what's going to take place. Tomorrow we're going to be training ambushes, different types of ambushes we're going to conduct, how to react to an ambush. Or the next day we're going to have night navigation. You have to learn how to navigate at night with the compass and whatever. The next one you're going to learn how to use the radio to call in artillery or everything, all the tactical stuff, So as we're training them, we kind of refreshed everything, and so when we go to Vietnam, we get orders after that class, we get orders to go to Vietnam. So we meet again in Dallas, the same day, same flight, and we fly all the way to Fort Lewis, Washington, all the way across to Cam Ranh Bay, South Vietnam. Fly all the way up north to Da Nang, South Vietnam, and we're still together. And I said, wouldn't this be something? We will live through this together. But at the last point, he goes to the Americal Division, which is where Pete is from. Okay, and I go to the 5th Infantry, and we live our experience. When it came time for my tour to be over, that was in January of '69. And in January of '70, my tour was complete. So when I come back to the airport to go home with my duffel bag and stuff, and I sit like you and I are in this bench, and there sits Hubert Hancock. I'll never forget. Just cried like a bunch of babies, like a couple of babies, so happy to see each other. And he was limping a little bit from a wound, but he was all right. And it took us a while to unglue. So anyway, we fly all the way back the same route from Da Nang to Cam Ranh Bay, from Cam Ranh Bay to Fort Lewis, where we processed in. Fly to Dallas, and then in Dallas he goes his home and I go my way. And so that's my story of how I got to be in the military. And I don't mind telling you this, I am extremely proud, and I kind of like to speak for 99% of the draftees that got drafted during that war, even though it was ugly and unpopular, unsupported. All the soldiers did their duty. All the soldiers served faithfully. Okay? Everybody thinks that you have to serve 6, 10, 20, 15 years, whatever. That's great. That's great. If you put in all that much time for your country, okay, that you make that your career. I already had my career. I need to go finish it so I can start. I wanted to coach football. That was my thing, okay? So when I get back, I get my GI Bill, and I go register. And that June, I get my degree. I started coaching in Alice, Texas in 1971 under the great Spike Dykes. He just passed away recently, by the way. So he was, it was just something that, it just, everything seemed to fall into place. All through school, you learn, words, vocabulary words. I don't know. How do you describe destiny? How do you describe destiny? You tell me. What does destiny mean to you? It doesn't have to be Webster Dictionary lingo, but how would you describe destiny?
Oh,
Sonora, yeah?
I mean, God. It's a God thing.
It's a what
I
thing?
mean, it's a God
It's
thing.
God-given? Okay, well, that's another thing. I like to think that I'm a good Christian. I was raised and very strongly believe in God. Well, my dad calls it fate, that we all are destined for something. Okay, el destino, they call it. It's el destino, mijo. That's fate. And your life, and I started thinking, those things are not coincidence. All those events I had in my life, it's like a book that is being written, and a chapter that's being done, and you shut that chapter, turn on to the next one, and begin a new chapter, and it's fate. And your whole life is a novel. Your whole life is a novel. Everybody's life is a novel, and that's why it's always I speak to a lot of youngsters. That's why I always try to encourage you to put good chapters in your book, because when you get to be old, you can always go back and you tear out the bad ones, the bad chapter, and it's gone. And focus on the good ones. And live your life by that. My dad was full of wisdom. Didn't know any English, but he was very educated. So now I realize what education means to him. At the time I don't know why he didn't call it education. He called it schooling, because he didn't have any schooling. My dad did not, 6th grade schooling is what my dad had. But he was a highly educated man. He did a lot of reading and read the Bible a lot, and studied his faith. He got in debates with his compadres about faith, And he told me this one time: just remember, in this great country, there's only 2 things the country asks of you. That's all you have to do. And at the time that he was talking to me, I think I was like a junior in high school. And you know how we are. You hear youngsters say, yeah, okay, whatever. And then he says, first thing is, you have to pay taxes. Tienes que pagar los impuestos. Okay, that's how our country survives. Okay, that's how our country gets paid. What do you think all that money the government makes? Where does it go? He goes on to explain to me, but okay. And the next one, serve it in one way or the other. And it doesn't have to be soldiering, but you're being called to serve as a soldier. What greater way? And at the time that I was talking, I wasn't even thinking about being drafted. Well, what if you go and get killed? What do you think, you're the only one again that's going to die for the country? What if everybody felt the same way and nobody went to war? They're going to die eventually. So that's how I am now into the service. Now the service is a different experience, but that's how I got there. And I'm very proud of the fact that I was drafted, and I speak for all the people that are drafted. Because in my experience, most of the people that served with me were draftees. Excellent soldiers, and they didn't gripe or complain. I never had any problem getting anybody out to the field. I tell them, you go to rank, or you go to ambush, you go with me, or you go sit up there at LP, listening point by yourself. You got point in this one and whatever. Nobody. They're trained that way. So that's for the draftees.